Hello, hello, hello. How are we all today? I hope you're fantastic. This is Makers TV. Hello. Today we're going to be talking about brand versus branding. And hi, I'm Michaela Dammers, and this is Makers TV. And each week I try to do live videos teaching you really short, sharp, actionable lessons that you can use in your business to strengthen your brand and grow your business. So, as I said, today we're talking about the difference between brand versus branding. So, I come from obviously a graphic design background, and so branding to me really feels like, I'm just going to turn the music off in the background because it's distracting me and I want to do a little dance. Okay, so as a graphic designer, branding has always meant to me visual identity. So and I think this is the same for a lot of people too, is when you say, what is your branding? Then people think my logo, my website, my color scheme, my fonts, all that sort of stuff, which is, to me, that's correct. The problem is when people mix up branding and brand, because your brand is something very, very different from your logo or your colors or the typefaces that you use across your designs or your product or anything like that. So, what's really important to distinguish, I think, is that your brand is not your logo, and it's actually, your brand is in an intangible thing. So it's not something that you can hold or show somebody. It's not a thing. It's more of an idea of what your business stands for, your core values. It sort of encompasses basically everything of your business. So what I'd like to get across in this lesson today, this very short lesson, is that when you're thinking about your business and how to grow a strong business, you really need to be thinking in terms of how to grow a strong brand. And what I mean by that is, of course, your visual identity, your visual brand, which is your logo, your website, any newsletters that you send out, how you visually express those, the way you edit your photos, all that visual stuff is part of it. But all of the other stuff that comes under the core strengths of your brand is what makes up your actual brand. So, of those core strengths, I'm just going to go through them quickly now so you can sort of think about what your core strengths are. So within the core strengths, we have your product. And when you're thinking in terms of your brand, you need to think about not just your product, but also what it does, how it helps people, how you package that product, the reason for it being a product that you're trying to sell, what is its purpose. All of that stuff comes under your product in terms of your brand. Then you have your customer. And of course, when we're talking about customers, we're thinking demographics, psychographics, but also, again, going back to how are you helping those customers and what is the purpose for helping those customers? Because if your main purpose in business is to make money, that's fine. It's not a bad reason, but it's going to be really difficult to then be able to reach your ideal customers, because that's not a great reason for them to buy into. It's like, well, Michaela wants to make a bunch of money. Come and follow me and buy my thing. Like, people are not going to be that interested in following you or buying from you because you want to make money. So you need to think about your customer more in terms of what you are doing for them. What's the benefit for them? Then, of course, you have your communication. So in this core strength, and if you want to go back through all of the core strengths, I've gone into them in a bit more detail in the first few episodes of Makers TV. But basically, it's every single touch point that you have with your customers builds your brand. So, well, builds or destroys your brand. So you need to think of that in terms of every single way that people experience your business. Make sure that that is all saying the correct thing. You're communicating the right message that you want to get across. And this comes back to your identity, your branding, your visual identity, and your graphic design of your business. But that is like one small section of your communication, because it also takes into account your the tone of voice that you use, like how casual you are. If you swear and all, I swear all the time, please don't be offended. So yeah, your tone of voice, your personality of your brand, of your business. And you can tell here, I keep saying brand all the time when I'm actually trying to say business, because I'm trying to get across that these two things are actually so intertwined that it's how you have a successful business is have a strong brand. And how you have a strong brand is to make sure that these core strengths of your business are like locked in, and you know about each one of them, and you know what the answers are for your own business to each one of the sections. So we did product, customer, communication. That's all the touch points across your business, including your website, your newsletter, how you talk on social media, how you engage with people in Instagram comments. All of that stuff is all included. How you write your product descriptions, everything, every way in which you communicate with your customers. Then you have marketing and promotion, and that is basically how, like, what are you putting out there to try and draw people in? And again, that's really closely tied with your communication, but it might also be, following on, like if you do collaborations, making sure that they are really in line with the core values of your business and also the needs of your customers. Because if you do a collaboration with someone that is just servicing them because they're going to give you $100 to post out about a mechanic offering and you sell dolls' clothes, it's just, there's this total disconnect between those two, and your customers will see right through it. So that's obviously not a great thing to do in your marketing and promotion to build the strength of your brand. Then you have your home base or your headquarters. Sort of tossing up whether to rename this core strength headquarters rather than home base, but it's basically your website, your home online, where everything about your brand and business lives. So even if you're selling on Etsy or Facebook or Instagram or wherever, you need that home base for people to come back to learn more about you. So that will have your story on it. And again, this cross-pollinates with your communication, how you're writing all that stuff, like what tone of voice you're using, what colors you're using on your website, and that ties into your graphic design. So all of these core strengths really intertwine a lot, but I think it's really good to sort of unpack them a little bit and separate them out to really, it's sort of a good way to find where the gaps are in your business. So if you're struggling with something and, you sort of come to me and you say, well, I'm not selling things. My first question is, who are you trying to sell to? What is your product and how is it helping them? And obviously that goes back to your product and your customer of the core strengths. So we can use the core strengths to identify where gaps might be in your brand, and then you can, work on that core strength and build it up and make it really strong so you can have that success. So the next one is plan, and that's basically how you're going to action anything. So how are you going to action your marketing plan? How are you going to action your communication plan? How are you going to action your goal plan? Any object or aim that you want to achieve in your business, how are you going to get there? If you want to make a certain amount of money by this amount of time, how are you going to do that? So plan encompasses all of those things. So you can always have these fabulous ideas about what you're going to do, but you need an actual plan of how you're going to get there. And then the last one is logistics, and that's kind of like all the nitty-gritty business stuff that a lot of creative people feel like it doesn't come naturally to them. And I think most often it's just because it's like we're creative. It's not super fun for a lot of people to like look at all your numbers and your money and your finances and tracking your statistics and, strategizing actually how you're going to make your plan happen and writing down your plan. We just want to be we want to be creating stuff all the time. And I totally get that. I'm exactly the same. But the point is that you can't neglect that area of your business, because then your brand will suffer and your business will suffer. So, having systems and processes in place to make sure that your marketing is happening. Maybe you're writing a blog post every week to sort of get your SEO happening on your website, on your home base, on your headquarters, whatever we're going to call that, and, improving that SEO so then when people are Googling, they're finding your products and they're finding your website. That's all part of your logistics and how you're implementing those things to make sure that everything's running smoothly. So back to the main question at hand. What is the difference between brand and branding? Brand is how you want your business to show up in the world. It's a promise that you make to your customers that you are this certain type of personality. Your business has this certain type of personality, and every time they interact with you, they will get that personality. They will get that fun, like fun-loving, whatever it might be. Or maybe you are like super serious because you want to be a reliable, like trustworthy source of something very serious. So they know that every time they visit your website, your newsletter, your product descriptions, whatever, they're going to get that same experience every time. So it's also really important, your brand, keeping it consistent, because that creates trust and credibility. So again, going back to this idea of promise, which is kind of like a little bit of an arbitrary concept to get your head around at first, because you're like, well, what do you mean I'm promising something to these people that I don't even know? It's basically like, I guess the most obvious example I can use is McDonald's. Like everywhere you go in the world, if you're going to order a Big Mac, it's going to be pretty much exactly the same as anywhere else. Your experience going into that venue is going to be the same, because they've made that promise all across the world that that's how they show up in the world, and that's how you are going to experience their brand. Anywhere else that has really good customer service that you know you can return an item to, like no questions asked, that's the promise that they're making to their audience, that yes, if your thing breaks, certainly come back for no questions asked refund, that sort of thing. So it's how you want to show up in the world to your audience every single time, making sure that it's consistent across everywhere, every single touch point that they see you, that they experience you. When I say you, of course, I mean your brand. And also it's really good to have, I guess, a message or a core value that's really clear, because that's something that people can get on board with. And part of that is telling your own story as a small business owner. You're sort of growing your tribe and growing your audience, and people will buy from you for you and the consistency of your brand, not just because they like your product. So making sure that you put your own stories and your own self as the business founder and owner into your brand. Usually, I'm kind of hesitating because that's not always the case. It really depends on your business, but I would say a majority of the time it's, people buy from you, and they buy, because of your purpose, not just because they want the thing that they're buying, if that makes sense. So, that's basically in a nutshell what I'm trying to get at, the difference between brand versus branding. Branding, could also be like that whole thing about brand, but generally I think when people say branding, they mean visual identity. So your logo, all that sort of stuff. And it's really important to get that right as well. But just recognize that it's only a very, very small part of your brand. It's a very important part, because it usually is the first thing that people will sort of see or remember, but not always. I mean, if it's, you could be making a video and that's the first thing they see. And so they do hear and see your tone and personality first. So making sure that that's consistent with everything else in your brand will be really important, more so than getting your logo right. So that's kind of it for brand versus branding. I hope that made sense. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comments. If you would like to get some free resources on branding, I have a whole bunch of downloads in my free resources library on the Makers Co website, and I've just put the link to that down below this video, so you can jump onto that. There's like 5 or 6 different ones in there that are all related to branding, visual identity, but also brand as well. So you can jump in there and get that, and hopefully found this helpful. If you did find this video helpful, please feel free to share with your friends, or just give it a like or a thumbs up, or leave any comments below if you would like me to expand on anything. Now, a last little note, I will be doing a live Q&A in my Makers community group on Facebook on Monday, and that will be about an hour long, I guess. It kind of depends how many questions we get, but that will be all about growing your brand, and we'll probably touch on a little bit of the visual identity and also the actual like growing a brand business stuff as well. So if you do have any questions, and if you're not able to jump in live, post the question below and I'll make a note of it, and then you'll be able to jump onto the live Q&A after it's live because it will be recorded. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, and let me see what I'm doing. Over 10 minutes again. I suck. I just can't get under 10 minutes. I'll just have to start saying it's going to be a 15-minute show. But that's okay. Under 15 minutes is good. So thanks so much, guys. And yeah, you'll see me next week. See you later.